any idea what this book is about? Because I sure didn't before opening it. Hi, my name's Rachel and today we're talking about Immortal Longings by Chloe Gong, which this book feels like it's everywhere, and yet I still didn't know a freaking thing about it other than it's a book written by Chloe Gong. This cover calls to me though, and I think that is because it looks an awful lot like this movie with Kirsten Dunst in it, where the two people live on planets that are very close to each other but have different centers of gravity, and you can't go to one planet or the other. You have to stay on your own planets, but these people meet near where the planets almost touch and they fall in love. Well, Immortal Longings turns out is not like that at all. You know what this is like? Altered Carbon. I'm gonna tell you what happened in this dystopian sci-fi book that is inspired by Shakespeare's Antony and Cleopatra, which is yet another thing that I am not at all familiar with. Yep, I popped this into my ear holes with zero context, completely blind, like many of you are going into this video. Again, shout out to the artists who watch my videos and will never read the books but are just here to have something to listen to while they're drawing. But if you are going to read it, I do recommend tandem reading on e-copy and audio. Personally, I listened to this exclusively on the best headphones that I have tried in my audiobook consumption career, which is actually today's sponsor, Raycon. Raycon's everyday earbuds are the headphones for audiobooking, and they just got even better. Their upgraded model now features active noise cancellation. I have two kids and it's summer. There is a lot of noise going on over here. Raycon reached out and I was like, shh, say less. I need you. I have been through so many pairs of headphones, and the issues that I run into typically with them, particularly with the earbud style, are them falling out of my head or causing earaches. I'm happy to report that Raycon's everyday earbuds do not do this. Their everyday earbuds have an ergonomic design created to comfortably fit the widest range of ears, and optimized gel tips make for a cozy custom fit. And when I do need to take them out for a minute, they just pop back into their case. However, this is something that I have not seen any other pair of headphones do. They magnetically interlock. So if I need to just be like, what's that? Youngest child, you spilled every goldfish that we had in the pantry onto the living room floor. No problem. Let me just, right? I love. But again, usually I just pop them back into the charging case, which they just like snap right in there. And their charging case has a quick charge function that gives 90 minutes of battery life in just 10 minutes of charging. With Raycon everyday earbuds, you get ergonomic design, multi-point connectivity that lets you pair with two devices at once, and active noise cancellation. They are available in a variety of colors, and I'm personally obsessed with my purple ones. It comes in this really nice case, but look how cute that looks together. Stop. Carlos's favorite color is purple, and I don't want him to steal these, so nobody tell him I have them. Everyday earbuds also have a 32-hour battery life. They come with awareness mode, which is great because in just one tap I can turn on awareness mode, and if I need to hear what my kids are doing, I can hear what's going on in the room, or I can cancel the noise and just hear my audiobook and not all of these sounds of kids being home for summer. They come with 3 customizable sound styles, earbud tap functions to reduce discomfort when using them, and you can get them in weatherproof or sweat resistant. With my Raycons, I have been listening to Immortal Longings on audiobook while watching my kids at the indoor playground, taking walks by myself, thank God for that, and working on these videos while hopefully my kids are not in the background setting the house on fire. Where will you take your everyday earbuds this summer? Join me in listening to audiobooks and tuning everyone else out. And you can do so by clicking the link below or by going to buyraycon.com/readswithrachel to get 15% off of your Raycon purchase plus free shipping. Let me know what audiobook you're listening to on your Raycons this summer, and thank you so much to Raycon for sponsoring today's video. So, Immortal Longings. Did I love it? Did I hate it? Let's find out together. I did DNF the other Chloe Gong book. What's it called? These Violent Delights. I did not click with that writing style. Pretty much within the first 2 chapters, I was like, ooh, this is gonna be a no. I'm not gonna finish this. These Violent Delights actually, is also Shakespeare inspired. It's a Romeo and Juliet retelling. And once I DNF'd, I never looked back, but I didn't write off Chloe Gong entirely. It's just that book I felt like was going to be something that I wasn't going to rate more than 3 stars. And often when that happens, I'll just DNF because I'd rather love something or hate something rather than just sort of be in the middle about it and feel very like middle of the road in my reading experience. I'd rather say this is a great book or this is a terrible book rather than this is a book. But this one I did not feel middle of the road about. But I went into this completely blind, not knowing if I was going to love it or hate it. Let me give you the synopsis, which I did not give myself before reading. Every year, thousands in the kingdom of Talon will flock to its capital, Twin Cities, Sanair, where the palace hosts a set of games. For those confident enough in their ability to jump between bodies, competitors across Sanair fight to the death to win unimaginable riches. Princess Kala Tuolemi lurks in hiding. 5 years ago, a mass massacre killed her parents and left the palace of air empty, and she was the one who did it. Before King Kasa's forces in San can catch her, she plans to finish the job and bring down the monarchy. Her reclusive uncle always greets the victor of the game, so if she wins, she gets her opportunity at last to kill him. Enter Anton Makusa, an exiled aristocrat. His childhood love has lain in a coma since they were both ousted from the palace, and he's deep in debt trying to keep her alive. Thankfully, he's one of the best jumpers in the kingdom, flitting from body to body at will. His last chance at saving her is entering the games and winning. Kala finds both an unexpected alliance with Anton and help from King Kasa's adopted son, August, who wants to mend Talon's ills, but the three of them have very different goals, even as Kala and Anton's partnership spirals into something all-consuming. Before the games close, Kala must decide what she's playing for, her lover or her kingdom. I'm actually really glad I didn't read that before reading the book, because I love not being able to expect or anticipate a damn thing. I want to be surprised lately.
The element of surprise!
Which most books fail to do. This is an adult book, whereas These Violent Delights was a young adult book. Let me give you the trigger warnings before we begin. There is depiction of blood and gore on page, lots and lots of murder, there is death of a child, there is kidnapping, and there is the whole premise really is using other people's bodies without their consent, as in you are inside their body animating it while they are sort of like locked away in the background. And yes, these bodies are used for sex without explicit consent of the host. So if that is something that icks you out, I would not go anywhere near this book. That is something that I actually had a big issue with in Wonder Woman the sequel, where Wonder Woman, if spoilers for Wonder Woman the sequel if you care, in the sequel, her boyfriend Steve, who died in the previous movie, comes back but in the body of a different man, and they have sex. And I was like, this feels... I feel like, you know you're not having sex with Steve, right? You know that that's somebody else's body who didn't say whether or not he was cool with that, right? You know that? So that sort of icked me out. So if you are also icked out by that, I wouldn't read this. Like, icked out to a very specific degree. I would avoid this because there's a lot of like using other people's body without their consent. Stop. Carlos is in here ruining my videos. Okay, I'm back to finish this. This will get spoilery. Again, I'm just warning you, this is going to be full of spoilers, and this is also going to be different in structure than my other typical in-depth reviews, because I decided to just structure this one by breaking it down into what author Daniel Jose Older calls the 4 C's of storytelling. So we're going to do a spoilery review and get in depth, but rather than go in like linear timeline about the book and just like conveying everything that happens, I will be breaking this review down into the 4 C's, which are character, conflict, context, and craft. And the way that these 4 things are made and the way these 4 things are done in a book, and the way that they are done like individually and then how they overlap, like this, like the four, okay, that can make or break your reading experience. First, I want to talk about craft. Even if you have characters and conflict and context down, you can lose readers simply through writing a sentence poorly or in a way that the audience doesn't perceive well. But you can also find your audience through writing a sentence that just really captures their attention, especially if you are able to write a first sentence of a book that really captures attention. You might be setting yourself up for success. However, when we talk about things like The Shadows Between Us, this has a really great first sentence, and then it goes downhill from there because there is lack of good character, good context, and good conflict. And craft, the sentence writing, actually is how I ended up DNFing Chloe Gong's last book. What happened was that she would regularly, right up front, introduce a character and then just dump a backstory in a large paragraph, and this happened a couple times, and I was like, I can't do this for 300 some odd pages. You don't have to be the best writer, but you do have to make it make sense, and you also have to be really careful about info dumping, and also info dumping is a spectrum, and some people would call this book, Immortal Longings, a perpetrator of info dumping, and maybe there's just info dumping that will work for certain readers and ones that won't. I feel like the way that information was given in this book made more sense, where we are slowly doling out information about the backstory of characters rather than in her her YA book where we were just like, this is their name and this is all of the information about them. A lot of books, again, want to hook the reader with the first sentence. That's very hard to do. This did that for me, but again, so did The Shadows Between Us, and then I ended up giving that book a 1 star. So when you write a pretty sentence, make sure that you are writing a pretty sentence in a book that you have had edited and that, you know, does more than just writing a pretty sentence. Or if you think that the sentence is pretty, it might not be, and you might want to read out your stuff out loud to see if it actually makes sense. Daniel Jose Older says that 90% of craft errors happen because writers don't read their story out loud. Because when you read it out loud, it'll help you find silly mistakes and find shit that just doesn't make any fucking sense. I think that that would solve a lot of issues. I'm sorry, I'm looking at you. In fact, I'm also looking at this same author. I just reviewed The Deer and the Dragon, and I remember the first sentence made me restart the book several times because it was so jarring. Let me read you the first sentence of Immortal Longings and see if it grabs you. A living thing, when faced with a break or injury, is compelled to heal itself. A cut will clot with blood, trapping in a person's chi. A bone will smooth over, knitting new threads at every split. And Sanar's buildings, when an inconvenience is identified, will rush to mend the sore, pinpointing every fracture and hurling remedies with vigor. I like that it's bringing both the city, which is like its own character in and of itself, in with the magic and lore of chi. So it's relevant, it makes sense, I dig it, and it's written in a way that sounds very good to my ear holes. The writing in this book works for me on a descriptive level because I feel like Chloe deeply understands her characters and knows how they each individually experience the world around them, both the disgust of it, the beauty of it, and then conveys that in a way that feels like she truly loves this story and tells you about it with like conviction in herself rather than trying to convince you how to feel about it by writing 80 superfluous sentences about how you should feel about it. Again, I'm looking at you. Of our main character, Kala, there's one point that says, sometimes she feels the weight of loneliness shift and settle inside her ribcage, like cold tendrils curling softly around her insides. Not enough to hurt, not enough to draw protest from her, but enough to serve as an ever-constant reminder, here I am, here I shall stay, you can never pull me away. And that gets more beautiful when you understand the context of who Kala truly is. Now, speaking of context, let's talk about 4Cs. So we just talked about craft, let's talk about context. Context is your time, your place, and your power. This is your world building. Daniel Jose Older, in his class about the 4Cs, says to ask like questions which are, what are the rules of your setting? Who has the power in your setting? Who and what do your characters see or not see? But also, what are your characters experiencing? What are the sounds, smells, sights? How is your character specifically experiencing these things? What about them colors their unique experience? Emotional attachment? Is there a classism element affecting how they experience environments? You'll notice how much Kala seems to take in Sanar, our settings, setting of how like grimy it is, noticing like getting dripped on from like dirty water, walking down barely lit darkened alleyways sort of lit by a adjacent neon sign. And Kala experiences this world differently than say our other main character August, because August is living in the lap of luxury, whereas Kala has experienced living in tremendous poverty and been a rich person. Walking throughout this world without it even being explicitly told to you, you can see how she's experiencing it in a way where she holds deep compassion for the world being the way it is and the people who are experiencing life under extreme poverty. Everybody in the kingdom of Talon wants to be in its capitals, in these two cities masquerading as one, and so Sanar must grow denser and higher to accommodate, covering up its offenses and stenches with utter incoherence. So this is explaining to you that the city is just packed full of people and everybody from the outside wants to come in because this is where the wealth is, but the wealth is not being distributed amongst all of its people. And a way in which the higher-ups keep these people in check is by giving them entertainment through the games. So, you know, similar to the Hunger Games. The games used to be a far larger event back when there were two kings funneling their coffers into the grand prize. Once watching skilled fighters tear each other apart in the arena was mere entertainment, something that was distant to the ordinary civilian. Now the games are a thrill that anyone can participate in, a solution to a kingdom simmering with complaints. So Sanar was two cities and now it's one city, but it claims to be two twin cities. And this is the capital of Talon, where we spend all of our time. And again, Sanar is just packed full of people, and it says, to suffer in Sanar is not a punishment, only a way of life. Any murmur from its inhabitants enmeshes immediately with the hum of its factories. The cities are perpetually covered with a blanket of noise, nothing in particular to be heard, but nothing that can be drowned out. Discussing the people who live outside the city, where it's, you know, supposedly peaceful. Sure, it's peaceful, but there's nothing out there. With peace comes quicker starvation. With open ground comes no money. It is either their children's graves lined up one by one outside the willow trees, studies, or a factory job in Sanar. The choice is easy. People starve in Sanar too, but at least they can say they tried. The majority of folks are living in poverty, they're struggling, they're owing a lot of debt. Meanwhile, the royals live in luxury, and the royals are King Kasa and his adopted son August. This is set in like an 80s, 90s type city with some tech, like computers, but you have to go to like a computer cafe. There's lots of running down dirty alleyways and neon lights blinking, as I said, and there's like swords and all kinds of weapons, but there's no like set phasers to stun or anything. There's no like, you know, guns like that. The magic in this, especially in the games, is that, I mean, the magic is that people are born and some of them have a gene that allows them to jump from one body to another. So their soul or their chi inhabits that body while the other person in that body is dormant. You can only have two chis in one body at a time, and when you jump from body to body, there's a flash of light that is very obvious, so you know if somebody just jumped. Without a person's chi, a body is just a vessel, and your vessel can be very valuable, say if you are the Prince of Sanar. Some people have super strong chi, so they're able to like fight back and kick their chi out of their body, another person's chi out of their body. There are bodies that you cannot jump into. Typically, you cannot jump into the body of a child unless you are very, very, very strong. Typically, they have to be like 12 or 13 in order for you to jump into their body. You cannot jump into the body of anybody who's too feverish or sick. You cannot jump into a body that already has two chis inside of it. And there are people called Waisanas who are born with an imitation gene that looks like their chi is already doubled. So they are living in a body that it looks like there is two chis, so they cannot be doubled up upon. You're not supposed to jump, like legally you are not supposed to, and most people have such weak abilities that they don't even risk it. And once somebody's chi reaches its end, it will fizzle away, and your chi can become ill and you can't jump out of it. Like your chi itself is ill. Rotting chi will eat the body from the inside out until the chi is gone. And there's also something called the Yaisu sickness. If you fail too many attempts to invade another body, your own will start to burn from the inside out, and that's called the Yaisu sickness. And Anton's girlfriend-ish 7 years ago came down with the Yaisu sickness, and one of our main characters, Anton, has been taking care of her like medical bills while she sits basically in a coma, burning from the inside out. Bodies, I don't really understand this piece, but bodies that are empty know how to fix themselves. But if your chi dies first, then the body dies. But if you jump out, then the body can heal itself. I think that's how it works. I got a little confused about that part of the magic. I do want to complain for a minute because while I think that this is so cool, that's not the only issue and question that I have. There is so much like obvious here that is not expanded on or explained or like questioned in the text. These people that are jumping bodies, they are jumping into a lot of people, and these people that they're jumping into are basically treated like NPCs in a video game. While so much depth is given to our main characters, none at all is given to the NPCs in a way that like it just doesn't make sense. These bodies that they're jumping into almost never seem to have any issues. Like if somebody were to jump into my body, they'd be like, this bitch. I mean, first of all, I just fell down the stairs this past week and I broke my toe and I tore my my rotator cuff. I'm going to the orthopedic next week. I went to the emergency room. I'm fine. The point is, you wouldn't know that by looking at me, and you also wouldn't know like I have chronic migraines. So like they're not jumping into bodies and being like, damn, I think this body broke its toe. I think it has chronic migraines. This was a mistake. I need to jump the fuck out of here. They're just like switching bodies, and those people are not fully realized people. They're just vessels. They're NPCs in a video game. There's only once that I recall being like, Anton jumps into a body and it has kind of poor vision. That's it? Out of all these bodies you jump into, that's the only problem you ran into? But also I think about like how the common people would start missing things because their bodies are taken over, and then suddenly they're waking up because they've been jumped out of. They're waking up in a completely different place. This would cause like, first of all, I think your mental health would deteriorate, but also they're missing things like necessary medical appointments probably, their own weddings, going to work and getting fired because they didn't show up for work because their body got taken over. How do you prove that? There's so much obvious collateral damage here that is inevitable, that would have to happen on a day-to-day basis, that isn't explored, let alone like giving a, like, how are we preventing this? The closest we get to talking about this is saying things like, an ordinary civilian with the jumping gene would never hover longer in someone else's body in case they're caught jumping, but also because they don't know whether that body will be their very death. And then discussing how people almost try to like use this, like, you know, use my body to get their families out of financial debt by placing themselves near where the games are happening so that they'll be jumped into by a player. Sometimes the sick and injured intentionally wander the streets during the games. By the way, the games, the Hunger Games type style style type thing that's in this book is happening like middle of the city. So like the players are going home. Intentionally wander the streets during the games hoping to be invaded. The games make jumping legal for the players. After all, they must answer for it by providing some sort of care. Like the palace has to provide some sort of care. Collateral casualties who are gravely injured must be taken to the hospital free of cost. Collateral casualties whose bodies are destroyed must be paid handsomely, and if their chi is killed alongside it, then their family members get the money. Plenty throw themselves in front of the players on purpose, making a sacrifice so that their loved ones can eat. And the palace has declared jumping illegal, but having the gene is like being given a sense of taste. People couldn't expect to not to seek good food. Those who are caught jumping are fined and imprisoned, but that doesn't stop the thousands who do it every year. So that's good, but not sufficient. How does this affect society? What can they do to prevent it? Are they doing anything to prevent it? There's also the question around eye color I have, which it will come up again later. The people who jump, their eye color comes with them along with their chi, and this helps identify them. For instance, one of our main characters, Kala, has yellow eyes, so does King Kasa. August and Anton, our other two main characters, have black eyes, but the color eyes that Kala has is called royal yellow, and the only other person who has this royal yellow is King Kasa. This will be important later. And then there's also the Waisanas, who are like the double chi people, have silver eyes. And the Waisanas, again, it says they're born as if they're doubled, but they have one set of chi, and while they can occupy others with ease, others cannot occupy them back, even if a Waisana abandons their birth body entirely and leaves their vessel in stasis on the ground. So Waisanas cannot be invaded at all. Alright, third C is conflict. Conflict is the backbone of our story, and crisis is an element of this, according to Daniel Jose Older, which, again, shout out to him for teaching me how to review books. The fact that this is my job. So Antony's crisis personally is trying to save Ota, his girlfriend, Ota Abia, and this debilitating medical debt that this puts him in because she's had the Yaisu sickness for the past 7 years. But these are linked to the larger conflicts of our story. August trying to put himself in a position of power is linked to the fact that Ota has the Yaisu sickness and that Anton is trying to save her. And of course there's Kala, who was a princess and is now in a position where August is trying to use her to put himself on the throne. Your audience needs to understand your conflict and needs to have an understanding about what happens if the players succeed or fail, especially your main characters. Conflict is the music of the story, Robert McKee says, and without conflict, you have things happening but not necessarily a story. There's internal conflict, there's external conflict. Internal conflict is what the character is going through internally that you are watching them trying to grapple with. So with August, he is feeling the weight of all of his adopted father's decisions and that his failures to Sanar, and it feels like he has to do a lot of scheming and manipulating for the greater good, to him at least. The external conflict is what exists outside of them in order to meet those goals, and you have to marry these together. And you can get spicy and have them achieve that internal conflict but fail the external conflict, which is sort of what happens to August in the end. The important thing is that the characters have to care about the conflict, and you need to know the power dynamics of your story and be able to convey these to the audience in a way that shows why they matter to the characters, which is context, which I will come back to, but the power dynamics inform your conflict. All of this gets difficult when you have so many players with competing interests as main characters, like we do in this story. So this gets compared to the Hunger Games. So imagine if the Hunger Games wasn't first person just watching Katniss the whole time, and instead, or experiencing everything through Katniss's eyes, I should say, and instead we are getting chapters from one of the careers, and resistance from District 13, and somebody at the Capitol who works doing the games. That is a lot to balance. It's those layers and dynamics that made this richer and more interesting. Now, did I understand it all? No, unfortunately. I did find some of the details of this and the competing conflicts to be a little hard to track. Specifically, I would forget who the Crescent Society is and what their goals were. So when we would get POVs once in a while from someone working in the Crescent Society, specifically her name was Pompey, while I was reading this, I was like, who the fuck is the Crescent Society again? So there's competing interests here that add to the conflict. So there is the crown, there is King Kasa, his adopted son August, and the people feeling some sort of way about royalty. So it says they may complain and bemoan the throne day after day, but an unshakable part of them decides that they aren't deserving of any better, so long as the crown says so. And it also explains how slaughter is used to keep people, from complaining too much. Slaughter as an accepted entertainment track, slaughter as a shortcut to wealth. It's also used to try to, level up your societal class. It also explains that Sanair, while it now has one king where it used to be twin cities with two different kings, it now has just the one king, and it still has a bunch of councilmen. So San and Ar were the two twin cities. Ar's council members govern the 16 provinces of Talon on the north side of the Jinzi River, while San's council members govern the 12 provinces on the south side, which lie closer to the twin cities. The kings of Talon became the kings of Sanar, and the rest of the provinces became more collateral resources. So basically, everybody living outside the city is just existing to try to funnel resources to the city to keep the capital living, but everybody's like shit out of luck, and really the royalty is the only ones benefiting from this. So the Crescent Society is a society that works within Sanar, and they are a small majority who questions how the royals do things. They send teenagers to do their work. The Crescent Societies are responsible for most of Sanar's crime, and their networks of people are the city's most persistent jumpers. So many of the people that are illegally jumping are working for the Crescent Society, but you don't really understand why the palace doesn't do more to crack down on the Crescent Society when they are doing things that are illegal. And they have temples that they run, but there is no hierarchy in the Crescent Society, except at each temple somebody will run the temple, but nobody really runs the whole Crescent Society. And what they're trying to do most of all is destabilize King Kasa's regime. And what you end up seeing is that Pompey, somebody who works for the Crescent Society, has been manipulating the games and learning to do things with chi that nobody has seemingly been able to do ever before. And then there are also the Sikans. So Sika is a country that was once at war with Talon. The twin cities are locked down. Nobody can come in without like papers, so Sikans can't get in. And it says flip open any textbook about Talon's war with Sika, and the Sikan salute is the first image to be printed. The only reason why Sanar has a wall surrounding it in the first place is because it was the last stronghold before Talon finally won the war. Sika started expanding the other direction, nursing its wounds after wasting so many resources failing to invade Talon. So you think that Sika might be involved in what's going to happen during the games, but you're not sure. And the fourth C is characters. So let's talk about what characters are and what they should be and which kind of characters we got in this book. So if you're not feeling a story, it is because you are not caring about the characters according to Daniel Jose Older. They need to be alive, and we only feel like they are alive if the author has written them in a way that makes it so that we understand and believe in their humanity. And that doesn't mean that they have to actually be humans. They just have to have a quality of humanity within them that we care about seeing what happens to them in particular. They need to feel like fully realized, wholly complex people, and the character has to want something. That internal conflict has to be present. Again, doesn't actually have to be a person. Like Murderbot is a good example of somebody who is not a person, like a human who has human qualities about them that the audience really cares about. But in this book, Immortal Longings, all of our main characters are humans, and you see very messy aspects of humanity within them. They don't have to be likable. August certainly is not, and sometimes neither is Calla, but you don't have to make your audience like your main character. You just have to make your audience care about your main character. This is going to differ though from reader to reader. Daniel wisely calls it similar to having a crush on somebody. You want to know more, you're intrigued about them, but not every person has a crush on every other person, and not every book is going to be like intriguing to every single reader. So I think the reviews of this book that said like this was boring as fuck, I couldn't get into this, are valid. But as for the subjective question of did I care, the answer is yes. So let's go over why. August, again, the adopted son of King Kasa. He was August Avia, now he is August Shenzi. His family died, and his father's sister married King Kasa, and they were all brought into the palace when August was 8 years old, so he has grown up mostly in the palace. And it says whatever ancient magic gave them the ability to jump between bodies also molded to the crown, so it like bonded the bloodlines. So the question is, if August is crowned, is the crown going to find him worthy? And you find out at the end. Well, you kind of find out at the end. I'll get there. So August is very manipulative. In fact, he even manipulated this year's games in order to get somebody in because he has a plan. He wants to take King Kasa out of the picture, and he wants to put himself in power because he thinks he could do so much better. He has a captain of the guard, Leda, and also his own bodyguard, Galipe, who clearly has a crush on him. And to be honest, I'm rooting for them, but also August is not a good person, and Galipe definitely deserves better. And August, even though it's illegal, August is always jumping. So August rarely stays in his own body because he doesn't want to get invaded. So he will jump from different bodies. He will always be in different bodies, and he has black eyes that sort of identify him. So in his scheming, him and Gallopé come across the fact that Kala Tuolemi, his cousin, who is the princess, she is the daughter of the king and queen of San, who are dead, and now it's just San heir, which King Kasa, August's adoptive father, rules all of it. Well, she's been out of the palace for several years now, and he comes across footage of her and he's like, oh, so you are still here. Cool. I'm gonna need your help. And Kala, again, was the princess of San. She was raised in the palace alongside August, and even Anton, our other main character who will come up, who was the son of a diplomat. She was raised in the palace and honed to be a weapon. It says they trained her for war and she rose up to wage it on them. And Princess Kala Tuolemi, you are introduced to her as a princess who does not jump, unlike August, who is jumping in and out of bodies. Kala has yellow eyes, royal yellow eyes, just like her uncle. It says for 3 generations, royal yellow has been the defining hereditary mark of the Shenzis in San and the Tuolemis in Air. Oh, I said it wrong. She was the daughter of the royals of Air, not San. Sorry. Tinted dark by a ring of burnt umber unfurling from the center. But now Kasa has an adopted son, August, and there's no one left of Kala's bloodline, not since her parents perished and the throne of Air crumbled. And the funny thing about Kala is that she killed her own parents, which is why she no longer lives at the castle. So right in the beginning, she gets her wristband, which marks her as a person competing in these games. And in the beginning, it says, you know, I'm waiting for my wristband. I get my wristband. She gets her wristband, and then she's like, all right, I'm in these games because I'm gonna fucking kill King Kasa. King Kasa inside San's palace. In these last 5 years, he has not left its grounds once. And if he will not come out for Kala to make her kill, then she will be welcomed in by his own hand. Also, Kala has a cat named Mau Mau. This isn't important. I just like it. And then there's Anton. Anton was August's best friend, and August was Anton's best friend and also his biggest fear. It says he could never let his guard down around August. So even as a child, August was scary. When he spent time with August, he never knew if he would get the sensible student who wanted some help with his history homework or the cold, calculating boy who once poured acid on Anton's hand because they needed to be near the infirmary while a council member was sick too. Anton had parents who, again, were diplomats, and then they were murdered in front of his eyes, and he, as this was happening, he was like, if I could just jump, then I could save my mom and dad. And he doesn't know who killed his parents, although in August POV, it says that they were killed by a guerrilla group in the Keletu province. But he still doesn't know why his parents were attacked or who was behind it. I'm sure we'll find out later, but we didn't find out in this book. Anton hasn't had contact with his birth body since exile, but it matters little to him. Every miserable event, every bit of trauma that Sanar gives him comes through his memory and stays with him. And Anton's entire existence is scheming to try to get more money to protect Ota Avia, who is August's half sister, and also Anton and her had like they were connected. They were sort of girlfriend boyfriend, but she sort of treated everybody like shit, including Anton, and she's been in a coma with Yaisu sickness for the past 7 years. And this happened because, well, Ota was about to reveal some information about August and Anton trying to scheme to get away, and then Ota fell into a coma because of Yaisu sickness, and she's like slowly burning from the inside out. Anton is very funny. Anton is like our comedic relief, but he's also a super skilled jumper and a skilled fighter. Him and Kala are both very skilled fighters, so they, you know, are like evenly matched, which is great. And he's only in this game to try to get money for the prize money so that he can pay to keep Ota alive, because he feels like he owes her that. Anton's only in the games now because he finally got lucky. He's everybody has an identity number in Sanar, and he's been tossing in random ones that he stole, hoping to get picked, and he finally gets picked. Pick me! And he gets his wristband and he's like, oh, let's fucking go. I am gonna finally get the money to pay the hospital back and save Ota, the only thing I have going on in my life. She remains on the hospital bed, still lying in sleep after 7 years. The palace has the power to help, but August pretends he doesn't receive any of Anton's communications. King Kasa has the power to help, but he will not. But Anton is a Makusa, a family line of palace nobles that goes back as far as the Shenzis have been royal. He won't be tossed aside so easily. In fact, he'll destroy anyone who tries. And he'll do it while laughing, because he's a silly goose. And then there's Kala. Kala Tuolemi is awesome. Just an awesome character to see on page. She's been living under the name Chami, but Chami actually exists. She's basically been like using the name Chami with the actual Chami. She's been staying under the radar, but using Chami's number for things when necessary. So the real Chami uses Yelis, who I believe is Chami's girlfriend, uses Yelis's identity number, and they like live together, and I think they run a business together. Yelis was Kala's attendant at the palace, and that's how they knew each other. So August finds her at Yelis and Chami's place, and it says, "This is August Shenzi, the golden boy with a one-track mind for climbing the palace ranks, no matter who he had to step on to get there. They didn't interact enough in their teenage years to become friends, but they've shared enough diplomatic visits that Kala has learned how the crown prince of San behaves, learned to ooze ease around him, and let nothing be used against her." And she's like, "So you know I'm alive and that I'm here in the city, why haven't you told your dad, King Kasa?" And she's like, "Go tattle and collect your points." And he's like, "Well, I'm here seeking your help, actually." She's like, "What can I help you with? Patricide?" And he doesn't answer, and she's like, "Oh shit, for real?" And he's like, "Are you surprised? Isn't that why you enrolled in the games? Don't you want to kill King Kasa?" And she's like, "For what? King Kasa drops dead and then you take the crown? You can't wait it out and just poison him?" He's like, "No, I need it to look like I have nothing to do with this." He's like, "I need a public murder with a clear perpetrator. I don't want my hands dirty at all." He's like, "The only way that you're gonna get away with this is if you get pardoned. That's the only way you're getting away with killing King Kasa. So you kill him and then I'll become king and I'll pardon you." She says, "Why do you want him gone?" He says, "You know the answer to that. There were once two heirs of Sanar. Why did you kill your parents?" She found pencil-drawn plans for her parents sending troops out into the provinces, which was like the final reason that she snapped. The last maps she saw on her parents' tables had been pencil-drawn, showing a completed conquest of the rural outskirts and almost broadening the mountains that separate their kingdom from Sika. Perhaps King Kasa has been inching further, even further into the borderlands. And then in chapter 6, Kala meets Anton, and immediately there is chemistry. "You're beautiful," he says. Kala snorts behind her mask. "You can't see me." "Who says I have to?" Anton says. "Do you flirt with every person you're trying to kill?" "Only you, 57. Aww. So he steals her wristband, and without your wristband you can't be in the trials, although the wristband thing was a little confusing for me. It seemed a little wishy-washy, but alright. She's not a regular player, so she calls August and she's like, "Hey, some dude stole my wristband. I need you to keep my wristband active until I can get it back and stay in the games." And August is upset. He's like, "How did you end up losing your wristband? But fine, I'll get it back for you." And then she figures out that this is Anton Makuza, and Anton figures out that she is Princess Kalatualemi. Prince August is then sent into a province for some dispute, and it ends up being an ambush from the locals. And they're like, "We're tired of this shit," and he's instructed by King Kasa to burn down the village. And you can see him sort of like struggling with this, like, this isn't the right move. This is like frivolous and ridiculous and politically bad for us. He's like, "Well, I'll be better than King Kasa. I have plans in motion." And it's like, will you be better than King Kasa, August? I don't think so. And it explains that him and Anton and Leda, the captain of his guard, they had been planning for a long time as kids to raid Kasa's vault, flee into the countryside with money and false identities. Leda's mom was in charge of security, and we had this entire scheme that would make us super rich and we would be able to get away with it. Anton wanted to bring Ota along. Leda and August said, "No, it's too dangerous." August and Leda were like, "We're out, we're not doing this plan anymore." Anton and Ota went forward with it. They got caught. One of the Waisana guards caught them. Ota tried to jump into the body of a Waisana when her and Anton were trying to make their play to steal all King Kasa's money and leave. She caught the Yaisu sickness because of this, and August admits, "We washed our hands of Ota. Anton is the only one keeping her alive. The palace has nothing to do with paying her medical bills." And Kala says, "So that's his motive for the games then. He cannot possibly afford to keep her at the hospital like that all these years." And August admits, "Oh, he's been in touch asking for money. He knows his own criminal status and that he's not supposed to bother the palace, and there is no coming back from the Yaisu sickness, so this is a pointless endeavor on Anton's part." It just kind of shows like how a little bit heartless August can be. Anton and Kala then end up teaming up to take down the other players, but they know that eventually one will have to kill or be killed, possibly by the other. And they have a code phrase that they use to tell each other if it's them, since, you know, they can swap bodies, they could be in anybody, and Anton is almost never in the same body as he was the last time she saw him. The phrase is, "What fine daylight we have today," but Anton's the only one really using it, since he's always like sneaking up on Kala in a different body and being like, "What fine daylight we have today." I love Anton for the comedic relief, but also, again, they are really both just very good fighters, so they'll be like, you know, bantering as they're fighting, and often Anton does these really cool moves where he'll like throw something at somebody and be like, "Here, catch," and then as they go to catch it, he'll jump into their body and he'll catch it. One time he stabbed himself and then flitted out of the body in order to kill one person. I mean, he's just like really smart but also really funny. August is not amused though. August is not amused. He wants Anton out of the games and he can't have Ota waking up. August is a really manipulative bastard. You kind of love to watch, but also you know, like, wow, he's just really not a good person. He's sort of like Kaz Brecker in that way, where you're watching and you're like, why do you do this to all these people? You're really manipulative. So he actually tells Gallipé, his head bodyguard, to slowly poison Ota and make it look like, you know, it's an accident. This pisses off Gallipé, who says, "I am your bodyguard, I'm not your servant," but Gallipé does it anyway. And later it says, "There's not much that August has all for himself, but he has Gallipé, who was made for him, not for the kingdom, and if Gallipé is drawing away, then he must be reeled back." And it's just kind of sad, like, seeing how August like thinks of other people sort of as like tools. There, besides all this, is some fuck shit going on where players are being killed, but they're not showing up in the feeds, so you don't know who killed them, which other player killed them, was it even a player at all, and bodies are being left doing, their body is being left doing the Seekin salute, which I don't know what the salute is. Maybe it's a vogue. I don't know. I don't know what they're doing. Body just left like this. There are 4 eliminations that aren't attributed to another player. I thought perhaps they had deactivated their wristbands. And Kala was actually attacked earlier in the games, and it says, "Someone came at me from behind, but as soon as I shoved my sword through their body, it dropped as if it were just an empty vessel, no blood, no chi," which is almost impossible. How can a body just be an empty vessel? You would see if they jumped out, because there would be that flash of light. There wasn't. So they start to wonder, like, is it the Seekins? Have they evolved since they cut them off years ago? So I'm gonna sort of try to tell you how this how this all wraps up, and then give you my final thoughts on it. The palace sees this stuff going on with bodies being left doing the Seekin salute and says, "There's obviously something going on. It's you know, it might be people within Senar who are doing fuck shit. We're speeding up the games to try to end them quicker." Anton and Kala, who are still in a partnership, get taken by the Crescent Society and Pompey specifically, who Pompey has started to showcase that she has powers that no one else has. She can move things, like with her chi, where she just like telekinesis people away from her. They get captured, taken, and Pompey's like, "I'm gonna cut out her heart. I'm gonna cut out Kala's heart." Anton is screaming at Kala, jump out of that body." And this whole time, like, Kala's like, "I don't jump out of this body. I never jump out of this body. I stay in this body. This body is my body. The rest of the palace, they taught me not to jump out of the body. Well, I don't jump out of I always stay in this body." Well, she won't jump out of the body even though her heart's about to be, she literally gets stabbed. Her heart's gonna get ripped out. Anton decides, all right, fuck this, and he takes out everybody. He gets them the fuck out of there. And it's after this when Kala reveals that Kala is not Kala. Here's me finding out in real time that Kala is not Kala. What? Anton says, "You're a wild, terrifying thing. Do you know that?" He asks, a tremor in his voice. And Kala says, "Have you figured it out?" He says, "This is Kala Tuolemi's body, but you're not Kala, are you?" Oh! I didn't see this coming whatsoever. Not even at all. So it explains that she was a child growing up in the provinces and she was hungry. She was alone and hungry. Bread is not enough. Small offerings once in a lifetime when they can bother making the trip out into the borderlands is not enough. She wants more. She needs more. And she comes across, she's like, it's like in front of this huge puddle and she's like playing, and this little girl walks up and it's Princess Kala, and she looks at her and it says she wants to be her. And then she gets rid of her own birth body and just assumes the body of Princess Kala. She was like, I don't, like 8 years old or some shit. Sometimes in her dreams she still remembers the other language that was spoken in what's now Rincun province. They switched between the two, one for the people who came from all over Talon and another only for themselves. Now I am 23, you must understand. I have had her longer than she had her, but if I leave this body, and Anton's like, she can't possibly be in there after 15 years, there's no way. And Kala's like, she might. No one has been able to invade me in these 15 years. It might be because I'm still doubled up, because the chi of the real Kala Tuolemi could be fading away. And this lets you know, like, this kind of gives like greater perspective on why Kala is the way she is. But who is Kala if she's not Kala? And it says that because who is she if not Kala? She doesn't even remember what her name used to be. She remembers nothing of the life she was born into. She remembers only the princess that she stole. I just did not see this coming, and I was shocked and also a little bit horrified, to be honest. Anton, hearing all this, is not horrified. He tells her that he cares about her, and she's like, oh my god, feelings, and runs away. Now, she still has a wound because, you know, Pompey tried to rip her heart out. Speaking of Pompey, August goes and talks to Pompey about the Crescent Society and realizes that not only is the Crescent Society manipulating this year's games, which so is he, but like, he's like, I'm the one who needs to manipulate the games. I have a plan and everybody else's plan is bad. But he realizes that Pompey herself is using chi in ways that people shouldn't be able to, and that someone from the palace has to be aiding her. So August kills her. Typical August. I thought that there was going to be more done with Pompey. Anton had stabbed her in one eye, and I thought that we were going to do more with that, where it's like, oh, now she only has one eye, she can't, maybe like eyes are connected to chi, I don't know, and then it wasn't, she just died. That was a little disappointing. But August like flicks out a knife that was like attached to his rings, which I love when jewelry turns into weapons, and then he, you know, cuts her throat. Because of Kala admitting this, she's now sort of finally dealing with these internal feelings, grappling with her choice to take over this body for 15 years. It says, when she became Kala, she gained insurmountable power, the unbelievable capacity to mold the world as she saw fit. She never really thought about everything she lost. And I also think she never really thought about her future beyond killing King Kasa. And she's gonna have to grapple with that as well, because now that she's met Anton, she's like, oh yeah, a future. That's a thing. She's been taking a break from killing because, again, she's healing from a wound, and she hasn't been actively part of the games, which, again, the game rules feel so willy-nilly to me, but alright. And so August, manipulative asshole that he is, sends men to attack her to sort of force her hand into getting back into the games. The guy that she killed said that somebody with black eyes sent him, and she's like, oh, and she doesn't think August, she thinks it's Anton, thinking that Anton's trying to kill her now. So she goes and talks to Anton, who again she's starting to deal with feelings for, which she never anticipated. She's like, you sent people to murder me, and he's like, I did not, and if you don't believe me, I have nothing else to say to you. And she cuts him and she says, does it hurt? And he says, everything you do hurts, princess. That hurt me. They end up having sex, which, like, good for them, but he's in somebody else's body, and technically so is she. They are both in somebody else's body. So again, I just feel kind of weird about this, and the only thing that's said about the weirdness of this and like the lack of consent here is this is someone else's body, but in Sanar, that detail is as normal as jumping. When it comes to this sort of use, bodies are only accessories, discardable and utilized based on need. And I'm like, is it though? Is it? I don't think so. And she's grappling with all these feelings, and it says it would be easier if he had betrayed her. That's familiar territory, something she knows how to navigate. Kala can handle pain, she can handle blood, but this is somehow all and none of that at once, a wrenching in her very soul. This is tenderness, and she is more afraid of it than anything else in their forsaken kingdom. She's afraid of tenderness. And Anton just doesn't want her to leave him. And Kala is always sort of keeping people at arm's length, and in a way Ota did too. Ota didn't treat people well, including him. It says 7 years without Ota, and he would have thought he had gotten better at this, would have thought that leaving his youth behind meant outgrowing his need to hold on too tightly to people once he has them. Yet Kala pulling away makes his skin prickle as if he's been given a slap on the wrist without knowing what he did wrong. Not my baby Anton. They talk about the fact that Kala is living in a stolen body. He says, who cares if you stole her? You deserve this power more than the girl who was born into it. Forget your name and adopt the title instead. Kala. Soon people will be saying it just as they whisper God. And this felt a little heavy-handed because later you find out the palace servants have literally been doing that. But also, I do love Anton and Kala together. So when it says, would you know me in another body? He says, in any body, Anton promises, you would still be the same terrifying princess. My heart. She asks if he loves Ota, and it says he loves her the way everyone loves keepsakes from their childhood. He loves her the way no one can let go of the first person they ever wholly adored. And he says, will it change how these games end? Anton isn't sure if he still loves Ota, but he thinks he loves Kala. He loves her quick temper, her sharp words, even when they're directed at him. He loves the rush every time he turns her scowl into a grin, or her grin darkens into a glare. Is that love? It's not as if he ever really learned what love is supposed to feel like. Oh, my god. So they're talking about they need to form a plan because they are falling in love with each other. And she's like, well, I have a mission. I have a purpose. The kingdom is starving. My purpose is to save Talon. But the king of San and the king of Ar also let me grow up in misery, forced my village into their kingdom without seeing us as people. For that, they must answer with their lives, one down, another to go. And I'm like, yes, but don't you also not see people as people when you just like inhabit their body? Isn't that like a universal problem now? And she's like, okay, I'm gonna pull out of the games, you win the games, and then I will just sneak in and I'll kill the king. So that's their plan, except August, when she presents this plan to him, says, no, I don't like that plan. We have a good plan. It's seeking trouble where we don't need trouble. We have a good plan. We're sticking with the plan. And she's like thinking to herself, let me keep him. She wants to say, let me have this one thing, talking about Anton, and she knows that August would say no. And he's like, what you have with Anton is not love. You're just obsessed. And I'm like, you don't know them, okay? You don't know what you're talking about, August. August says, we're not doing your plan, period. And also, I need your help with something. And has her show up to this meeting with a bunch of his guards. Anton shows up, scares the shit out of her, and says, what fine daylight we're having. She's like, stop fucking sneaking up on me. Anyway, this whole setup, its purpose was to prove that Leda, the head of his guards, is the one manipulating the games and working with the Crescent Society. It says, after all that Leda has taught the Crescent Society members, who knows what else she's learned to do. Perhaps she really can invade Away-Sana. And August is like, you are a fool. I had a plan to depose King Kasa. I was on it. Why did you intervene? And she says, you weren't trying to depose him. You're trying to replace him. You will take the throne. Nothing's gonna change. You'll fix things for a year or two. You'll smooth over the holes you saw appear while King Kasa was on the throne. Feed the people. Dissolve the council members who are not governing their provinces well. And then other holes will appear. The outer provinces will want independence. Sun Ar will want the wall to come down, and you will not want it. You will think it useless. The years will catch up. You'll start to resent those who are loud about their demands. You'll punish them by withholding resources and food. Poverty will strike. Balance will shift again. And all the while he's saying, shut up, stop, don't say this, no, that's not true. And she says, you will be a tyrant just like King Kasa is. Why do you think I bothered with this facade, training an empire temple of crescents to use chi tactics that have been long forgotten in the royal books? Do you think you can fix this by taking power? Either you're fooling yourself or you're trying to fool everybody else. No king is selfless. No throne is built on bloodless ground. There can be no freedom until the crown is broken. The Waysanas were not born to protect one pitiful royal from the consequences of his greed. Half the provinces in Talon have their own language. Did you know that? Did you know? They don't want your benevolent rule. They want freedom. We are not a kingdom anymore. We have long been an empire. She told him, and he was like, I'm not listening, la 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 la, and he leaves the room with his bodyguard. Anton is kidnapped by August men, and so it sets it up so that Kala and Anton are the last two, and instead of an actual, Hunger Games moment where it's like, well, I'll just kill both of us, they face off, and Kala says, they took you and I couldn't stop them, and she's so heartbroken because even this is not hers. Her body will never truly be hers, the kingdom will never be hers, her life was never hers, and Anton will never be hers. Anton is like, this isn't the only way, don't do this, we can figure out a way out, we don't have to play by their rules. And Kala's like, we do, we have to. Kala, there will be no end to this. Look at us, we fought before, we are evenly matched, we will both be dead by the day's end. She says, I love you, so this is a favor to you. I'll spare you from having to land the blow on me. I will take the burden. And he says, that's ridiculous. This made me so emotional. He says, you're taking no burden. You can kill me, but you need to tell the truth. Kill me because you love your kingdom more. And what has Talon ever done for you? Oh, my heart. He says, why does Talon deserve your love? And she says, it isn't deserved. Love is not deserved. It is freely given. I don't have the capacity. He says, I believe in us. There's another way out. She says, I'm sorry. And she stabs him in the heart and watches his body dilapidate before her eyes. So she's crowned victor. She has a mask. She's been wearing a mask like the majority of the book. So she gets in front of the king and she looks at him and she says, Uncle, don't you recognize me? And cuts his head off. So she did it. She won the games and killed King Kasa just like she always prepared to do. But at what cost? And this is supposed to make her feel better, but it says that she only feels empty. With a shudder and a wave of chi at this moment, same moment, Ota Avia opens her eyes. The palace, Ota croaks, take me to the palace of earth. So Ota magically wakes up. I don't remember how this is possible or if it even said. And Ota's like, I gotta get to the palace right now. If I woke up from a 7-year coma, I'd be like, take me to the palace, but first, could we please, for the love of God, go get some boba? Maybe a monster, some french fries. The next day, Kala is pardoned. happened. She says that she had been dreaming the night before of an Emperor Anton, which is really sad. She's heartbroken. She just wants August to get crowned, pardon her, and send her off to go live near the sea, and she basically wants to end her life because that's the only way that she can be with Anton. She can't imagine what his next move is. Perhaps she should have asked, but the two of them were so intent on their one mutual goal, King Casa dead and gone, that it hardly seemed to matter what would come next. And that's the thing is, she didn't plan ahead. She certainly never planned to fall in love with somebody that she would have to kill. Again, it's a worry that the crown itself will not accept August because he is the adopted son of King Casa. The crown is placed on his head. It accepts him, and she says, "Long live the king. This will be a day that will be long remembered." And August says, "It will be remembered. And what fine daylight we have to ensure its longevity in their memory." It is not August Shenzi, the rightful crown prince of San, that Kala has put on the throne. It is Anton Makusa. What? Oh my god. I screamed. That was scrumdiddlyumptious. I never saw it coming. Oh my god. Okay, final thoughts. I love Anton and Kala. I love them. Does this have some what I think might be plot holes? Yeah, I think so. I love Anton and Kala though. Their chemistry was spectacular. I also just love them individually and together. Both, which is really difficult to do. It's half of why I complain about books. I loved how much he loved her and how he is all that she has, but there is still Ota between them. I love how funny he is. I love that they are evenly matched. I love that their love is so brutal, like in its cultivation. I also loved watching August, but as an obvious villain. He is a villain in his own right, and I'm very glad Anton took over his body because he was so disgustingly manipulative. And that scene where Leda told him, "You are just as bad, you will be just as bad as Casa. You aren't better," and he's like, "That's not true." It was like holding up a mirror to him, and he was horrified. I loved it. I did love the setting. I did feel very immersed, but I don't understand the games. I don't understand like how there's like basically no consequences. If you take off your wristband, what happens? You gonna get in trouble? Are they gonna come for you like the Capitol would? If you can just bow out, what's the point? I also just don't understand how this world is regulated or functioning when jumping isn't really regulated. I think we could have gotten deeper into the themes here, especially with regards to like poverty and classism, but I do understand that this is like very character focused, so we're mostly explaining like how it affects these three individuals in particular and how their stories are overlapping. I still feel like we could have done more. This is an adult book, so I expect more adult ways of exploring theme. The consent issue with using people's bodies I don't think was discussed in a satisfactory way for me though, and that was really disappointing. It like really got hand waved there in that one sentence at the sex scene, and I was like, that's it? That's how you're gonna... Okay. I also feel like, again, Kala has royal yellow eyes, and it's said that variations of yellow exist in this world, but that particular eye color she has is called royal yellow, and that her and King Casa are the only ones with it. So did fake Kala's eyes just happen to hop into the body of Kala, Princess Kala, and they both magically happen to have royal yellow eyes? And we could have solved this by just saying, I saw a little girl, I saw Princess Kala, she had the same eye color as me, nobody was gonna know, and then I hopped into her body, but we didn't even do that? Because that's how you know if somebody has jumped into somebody else's body, like you identify them by eye color. But if you jump into a body that has the same eye color as you, how are you gonna know? Nobody's gonna know. How would they know? But I really did not ever see that end reveal coming. And because I loved Kala and I loved Anton and I loved Kala's cat and I liked the setting and I was just really engrossed in this, the plot holes didn't ruin my reading experience, which is a really rare thing for me to say because often they do. I mean, I never saw that reveal coming. When Anton said what fine daylight we have in August's body and you realize that it's Anton in his body and that he must have jumped without the flash of light, I screamed. I mean, I just never saw it coming. So I'm gonna give this a 4. There's some, again, world building choices here that I felt were not the right ones, and it needed help with editing to better answer those questions, those very obvious questions I have. But I think the writing other than that is good. Like on a line level is good. I read so much bad stuff here. I mean, come on. Like in comparison, come on. And I also think that this was smart, and I think that this was unique. It's doing some things I've seen before, but in a new way with characters I haven't seen before. And I think those characters are truly standout people. And the fact is that I care about what happens to them next. So I will give it a 4, and I hope that some of you will like it too. So try it out. And if you hate it, that's okay. We don't have to like the same things. I'm okay with that. I'm okay if this is your most hated book of the year or of all time. It is not personal. It does not hurt my feelings. All reviews are valid unless you're being a bigot. But for once, I did a very long review on a book that I enjoyed. You're welcome. For all of you asking, do you even like anything you read? Here it is. Even though I do positive reviews all the time. Here's another one for you. Okay, that was it. That was Immortal Longings. This video took me forever to execute. I'm very glad that I am all done. Please check out the book and tell me what you thought of it. Let me know your thoughts and questions. If you made it this far, leave a, I don't know, yellow heart for Kala's eyeballs down below. Okay? Thank you so much for watching. See you next time. Bye. My mic was not on, was it? I was just talking to nobody because my mic was not on. Okay, before I go, I have to say thank you for being a friend to my Therapy Bills patrons, and those are Alexander, Ashley H, Astrid P, Brittany Bobitney, Cami, Chris, Choco's Trash for Japanese Mysteries and Thrillers, DJ Rocktopus, Ellie, Emerald Dodge, Emperor's New Blues, Aaron with 2 E's, Eric, Galaxy Bot, Jess, John E, Julie D, Kaleno K, Casey McKenzie, Kate W, Kiara, Quinn, Lady Kittybug, Lady Chips, Lemon Jelly, Lex, Lily B, Max B, Mommy Zombie, Alice, Panoramic Demon, God, that's a good one, Rain, Reese, SJ, Samar, Sad Witch Bree, Scarlet, Shiny, SMK, Spoopy, Steph B, 2 Orbit, Urchin Audrey, White Raven 13, Zorvictia, Your Bad Little Dragon, Peggy, that is a crime, and Chai Guy. Thank you all so much for being here and for being a friend. And last but not least, I have to say thank you for being a friend to my Potato Starch Marxist patrons, and those are Alejandra, Alicia, the Bane of Book Banners. Ha! I love that. I love that very much. Althea, Amanda D, Amanda, Andy, Angelica, Artie the Ninth, Ava, Ballads and Bookends, Beck, Blake Lemon Pants, Blythe, Bookish Brain Rot, Bookish by Geneva, Bree, Caitlin, Cardinal Ginger, Carlin, Casper, Kate W, Catherine, Kathy, CJ, Clover's Mom, Cole, Colleen, Corwin, Cosmic, Darius, Danielle, Darren, Desiree, Dilf Enthusiast, Dorian, Dorothea, E.T. Cosgrove, Ebby, Emily A, Emily L, Emma, Other Emma, Aaron, Ezra Moon, Fiona, Gadarn, Garrett, Hannah C, Harpy Kuro, Haley G, Ilianaka, JM Tennant, Jay is on Olympus, Jelly V, Jen Michelle, Genderqueer, Jenny G, Justice Sue, Jill, Jillian R, Jojo Bookish, Kat, Catherine, Katie, Kaylee, Kayala, Kendra, KMTB, Laughing Cat Dog, Laura, Lauren, Lazarus Ray, Library of Scars, Lindsay, Lisa B, Lisa L, LP, Lou Siri, Lustful Octopus, Martin, Madison, Man-Eating Plant, Marcella, Marquita, Megan, Malara, Mentally Unwell, Same, May, Mockingbird Nation, Molly, James, Natalie, Never, Nicole G, Nicole R, Nyan Binary, Paige P, Penny Chilling, Foxglove, Rachel B, Reba, Rebecca, Rebecca R, Ronnie, Rosie, Rowan, Secoria, Sadie, Saintbringer. Oh, Saintbringer is a great name. Oh my gosh. That belongs in a fantasy book. Sorry. Saki Alume, Samantha, Sammy C, Sarah H, Sarah the Bear, Sarah Z, Shamed, Shannon, Sean, Super Evil Sam, Tay, Talia, Tiana, Trashcan Teddy, Triple M, Tito Phoenix, and Writer A. Thank you all so much for being here and for being a friend.